All right, guys, this is the guy I've been looking to talk to for a long time. This is Zoltan Istvan. He's a futurist, he's a journalist, but why he's here is because he's a transhumanist. Now, what is that? We can get to in a second. But because it's a drinking show, I gotta tell you what we're drinking, okay? These are Rob Roy's. Scotch, sweet vermouth, Angostura Bitters, just a little stir, and then we drop in a cherry. Good to go. Okay, so we can just do a little cheers. Beautiful. You already start drinking, so.
Had a few drinks.
So I have to catch up. Okay, off the bat, right away, what is a transhumanist? Because when you hear that, the word trans, automatically people go, oh, these are people who are transgendered or something like that. Explain what this is.
So transhumanism is a social movement now of many millions of people around the world that want to use science and technology to radically modify the human body and also to modify the human experience. And it can be anything from exoskeleton suits to brain implants to even something like driverless cars, but it's really usually radical technology that wants to change what it means to be a human being.
I get that. Why? Who came up with that name? Because that's such a confusing name in today's world, because when you think trans, you automatically go into, oh, this is something with sexuality.
Well, so, it came back out basically in the 1930s, 1950s. A couple different people started using it, but really it was a kind of a movement of philosophers in the 1990s from California, of course, always California, that
we lead the world, okay?
That started realizing technology was, I guess, speeding up so fast that at some point in the future we were really going to be able to cut off an arm and put on a robotic arm that was a lot better. Mm-hmm. And so they formed this movement it really called extropianism at first, but then it changed to transhumanism as a better word. And that word has now, over the last 5-6 years, just really caught on. It's become kind of the de facto term of anything futurist related that modifies the human being to be something kind of superhuman.
So, I mean, I know 100% this is possible because I know a kid born today, provided we don't get in any seriously nuclear wars or something, probably is gonna live forever. Or either a few hundred years very, very easily as you have artificial intelligence advance and we learn and understand the human genome a whole lot more. So, but my thing is, with transhumanists, one of the theories that you guys push is, like this idea of immortality. And that freaks a lot of people out because everybody was raised in the church, and a lot of Americans were at least. And they're like, wait a minute now, you guys are trying to change us and God made us perfect. How do you respond to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the central conflict of transhumanism is that we live in a world where about 80% of the population is religious, believes in an afterlife, and transhumanists' major and probably primary goal is to try to live indefinitely through science and technology, essentially to overcome death. And you're right, anybody born under 15 or under 20 almost is guaranteed to live as long as they want, as long as there's no, asteroid or terrible plague or some nuclear war perhaps. But I think people like you, our age, I think we're at a kind of that cutting point. The last generation, will we make it, will we not? But yeah, there's no question that there is now billions and billions of dollars, a lot of it again from California, flowing into what we call the life extension industry, and it's either through genetic editing or uploading your consciousness or through stem cell technologies or different types of ways that you can make your body live a lot longer and hopefully all the way, indefinitely.
So we've already seen instances. I know they've been able to do age reversal in lab rats, okay? So where are we now on that front?
So, they have done that, and really the big challenge with any kind of drugs and any kind of research in America is actually getting permission to do it in bigger animals and then in human trials. And any kind of drug, and this is one of the problems with the system in America, is anything takes about 10 years to get through the pipeline. So while we've already done the rat test 4, 5, 6 years ago, it's going to take a lot longer before we can actually start doing human trials. Now, there are a couple human trials underway right now, but it's not the big giant ones that we want where billions of dollars are pouring into it. We probably already have the technology to at least figure out if some of these ways will stop aging, and we think they will because they've done it in other mammals. But yeah, the government's standing in the way. And of course, it's just not to bash religion, but our president, our vice president, 9 Supreme Court justices, basically every member of Congress at least on paper, claims to be religious and believe in an afterlife. So they don't really have this incentive to put money into the life extension field so people can live longer, because their belief systems don't really want that. They're what we call deathists. They believe
that we have to
die in order to meet a maker.
Right.
And I understand that philosophy, but the reality is transhumanists are mostly secular, and they want to put our money here while we're still alive to the ones we love and keep them alive as long as possible.
But what if I could make this argument that everyone is a transhumanist? It depends on the marketing pitch, because nobody really wants to die. Like, you have people go around, I want to die, and we all assume that we can grow old very peacefully and die in our sleep, which is never the way it happens, right? My thing is, what if you market it differently and go, okay, well, here's what we could do, guys. You could take this medication, and this would then get rid of diabetes, hypertension, and this will help you, to live a little longer, but never really come out and be, hey, we're selling immortality.
So no, and in fact, I'm known as kind of one of the big provocative, tools, of the movement. I get myself in trouble a lot because I do things like drive crazy coffin buses across the country, and I actually try to, in somewhat of a, bombastic fashion, I create a conflict in order that media coverage will then appear for transhumanism, because it's such a small fringe movement. I mean, now it's growing. But 5 years ago, it was a fringe movement. It needed media coverage. So clashes were great. But now that I've actually started, speaking of the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, places like that, I've actually toned down a lot. And I'm becoming much more diplomatic because, I realize that if we can't sell this to a Christian nation, we can't sell it at all. So we better say, hey, this is not about living forever or challenging religion. This is just about you being able to spend, 100, maybe 200 years with your grandchildren. Don't you want that? And then everyone says, that sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
And so then it's a different thing. But I've gotten better at
because I was saying, because if you go down this immortality road, you can have some Christian activist.
Right.
Might not even be Christian, because it could be any religion, because most religions sell some afterlife. Who goes, oh my God, this guy's the Antichrist. I need to take these transhumanists out, No,
they've said that about me lots of times. I get hate email, I get death threats. But I have toned it down because, I think the more popular the movement has gotten, and I guess the more popular my own kind of writings also have gone now, the New York Times and things like that, I have to actually be a lot more balanced. And frankly, a lot of my supporters like that. I think a lot of them were, a bit upset that sometimes I provoked too much in my early days. But when you start a new movement, like when the environmental movement started out, and Greenpeace was kind of the very first organization, they did some crazy things, and they did some very wild things, but that's what launched the environmental movement, is at the backbone of these activists. And then later, environmentalism became a very professional industry. And I think transhumanism is going through that similar phase.
Okay, so let me ask you about some of the things that you see in transhumanism now. So Elon Musk has, Neuralink, his company, and his goal is that you have artificial intelligence evolving. And if we evolve independently of that, at some point, artificial intelligence could take over. And it could be a great world where we live forever and we have this great robot overlord, or it could be Skynet coming to kill us. And so he wants to implant these chips in our brains. Now, my question about that is, whenever tech guys sell you something, it's always a catch. I'm knocking Elon Musk, I'm just saying, they always collecting information on the back end, behind the scenes, is this, is that. So can we trust someone like him, who's smarter than most people out there? Because if he gives me a chip, I can't figure out how this chip works. So I just have to trust him. How do I know that these guys actually working for my well-being? Because you can put something in my mind where you control me.
Well, I'm not that worried. Like, when you look at, historically speaking, the world has become a lot more improved through science and technology.
Yeah.
So we can rest on that huge fact. I think, when it comes to somebody specific like Elon Musk, okay, yes, we have to take some care. We don't want to just put stuff into our brains. But honestly, you have to also take a larger historical perspective. AI could be very dangerous. If we don't merge with AI and yet we create it, that would definitely be the worst thing. What we need to do is, I think, put implants into our brains And as we launch that AI, kind of be one with it, connect with it, utilize it, almost merge with it. And that way we can be certain that the robots won't become the Terminator, because we've sort of become the Terminator in itself. That's the only, I think from a game theory perspective, that's the only way to move forward. For that reason alone, I'm kind of trustworthy of all tech companies, because I think they also realize that this is game over for all of us if we do this the wrong way.
Yeah.
But I also think that we also have to be very cautious. We can't just like stick stuff in our head and just say, okay, it's all good. It's not like a phone where we can take out of our pocket and throw out the window. I mean, the chip's stuck. I mean, I have an implant, and
yes, you do.
I have a tiny implant. It opens my front door, can start a car, sends out a text message, does all sorts of funny little things. It's more a party trick, gimmick. It doesn't really do anything too sophisticated. It does replace keys. But God, I've been really happy to have it.
Do you use it often?
Well, I use on my front door. I can only use it. That's all that's set up. So I only have a reader. And
does your wife have a reader too?
No, my wife has a key code that she can press in, because we wanted to get the implants for my children as well. But actually there are rules against getting implants for children at that age. There's all sorts of different types of technicalities. So while I can do it, and we're not even so sure if it's so legal for me, because every state has a different rule against what you can put in your body when it's not FDA approved. But anyways, so my kids and my wife just punch in codes, but I scan.
That's awesome. Does your wife buy into all this the transhumanist movement?
So, my wife's a physician. She's an OBGYN.
She's a doctor. His wife is a doctor.
And she has also 2 research degrees. She does not buy into it. She likes it. She thinks it's awesome what's happening with the world, the technological innovations and whatnot. Does she want to live forever? I'm not sure. I think she would say, I don't know yet. And does she support all that I do? She supports me, but I think she doesn't necessarily agree with a lot of it yet.
So do her friends call and be like, hey, is your weird husband there? Oh, no, he's not. Okay, I'm coming over.
Well, no, of course. And the big argument we always have, going back to Elon Musk, is, can we, in 10 or 15 years' time, when we have this chip in our head, download education? And if we can, should I stop saving for my daughter's college funds? And I say, yes, let's stop saving. It's so much easier. Spend the money on ourselves. And my wife says, hell no. We're not going to stop. We're not going to trust your chip downloading education idea. They're going to go to normal schools like we all went. So when it comes to things like that, that's when my wife puts her foot down and says, we're not going to cross that line. But there's a good chance that probably within 15 years we will have implants in our head. We could, if we wanted, that could download education, algebra, calculus.
But that's because that's one of the things that Elon Musk is pitching. That hey, okay, so you can't fly a helicopter, but if you have this implant, then you go into that file and you download all those notes, and you immediately know how to handle a helicopter.
It's just like the Matrix, and it's so close. I mean, if they're now racing drones. I just did an article for the New York Times where I discussed this in Florida, where they race drones around a track just wearing headsets. It's the same thing as an implant, except it's a headset. It reads your brainwaves. They don't touch anything. The drones lift off and fly around a truck, and they're racing them. That's how far this telepathy brainwave technology has already come. So where will it be in 10 years? I mean, it could be we could be playing the piano, Mozart's Fifth Symphony. My 8-year-old daughter takes piano lessons. We pay a lot of money for it, and I'm like, why, when she's 21, she can just download Mozart's Fifth Symphony and be perfect at it?
No, because I agree. You could see, if you open your mind and look around, because I'm sure there are people watching us right now who going, nah, these guys out of their mind. But there is no more science fiction. That line no longer exists. Because every day you wake up, and if you Google AI, you will see some new discovery or some new threshold that they've crossed. And a lot of it, sometimes there is hype, but there are real advances, man. So let me ask you this question about your kids. You would edit your kids' DNA if it was legal, and you could make them, let's say, better at certain things.
Well, totally. So in my family runs heart disease. I would have absolutely eliminated that. But would I have made them taller, stronger, smarter? I mean, the answer is, what parent wouldn't do that? I mean, we all would. If we could press a button and say, my child's going to be as strong and as and healthy and as intelligent as possible, we'd all press the button. And this is where it gets this kind of crazy world with China and America right now too. China's now sort of leading the rush on genetic editing development. They've done some of the very first embryo, altercations essentially, and have children that are genetically modified. And they may be the very first country that puts forth a generation of children that have higher IQs through genetic editing modification. And what will that mean from a national security issue for America? What will that mean for, I mean, imagine if you're just, you knew somebody on the street just had better intelligence than you because somebody pre-programmed it before that person was even born.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden from a job market, workplace, it becomes different. I mean, this is what's happening.
No, I mean, I don't think parents have a choice because if you see people begin upgrading, which will happen. As a matter of fact, I believe it already has happened because if you are a top-notch geneticist and you know what you're doing, why would you not modify your DNA? Why would you wait on the FDA to say, hey, you have approval? That could take years, like you just said. So if I'm in my lab, so I know that you probably have modified humans out there, but if we start doing that, and your kid, and you say, no, I don't want to, your kid will be light years behind because his IQ would not be sufficient to keep up.
And that's the problem is because once you get behind in this society, it's really hard to catch up.
up.
That's why the rich are getting richer, the poor are poor. I mean, the society is getting more fragmented as we go. And it's not just with wealth, it's with intellectual power and all these other things. And if that continues, we'll never catch up to the Chinese. It'll be game over in a way from, I think, a cultural and a financial and a lot of different points of view. I do some consulting with the U.S. military and all these other things. And I keep telling them, even though we have a conservative government that's really kind of afraid of these things, wants to put moratoriums on these things, we have to push forward as quickly as possible with these technologies because if we don't win the race, they're going to.
Where's the U.S. military on this, in your opinion?
Well, the U.S. military is essentially controlled, I think, by a Judeo-Christian culture, which says, we're really not wanting to modify the human body. Let's just make a lot of drones and bombs and things like that. But the reality is, as we move forward culturally and we move forward with what's better for maybe sports and things like that, and just also, just procreation, obviously genetically editing ourselves so we don't have heart disease or we don't get cancer or we never get Alzheimer's or we, all have IQs of 180, that's the most, that's the most beneficial thing. And so countries that don't have the kind of, I suppose, conservative hangups that we have are going to move forward on this much faster than America will.
One of the things you wrote about, I think it was a New York Times article, where you talked about having a Transhuman Olympics, right? Wherein people who've been modified, allowing them to compete against other modified people.
So, right now in Switzerland, we have what we call the Cyberthon, which is this kind of
what's it called? Cyberthon?
No, Cyberthon.
Cyberthon. Okay.
Yeah, it's this weird word, but basically it's cyborg and kind of like a thon. But it is what they also call a cyborg Olympics. And essentially, it's most people are missing limbs, so they're either paraplegic, quadriplegic, or missing limbs entirely. And they're basically what they call pilots or avatars. They put on different types of brain-reading headsets. So you have a guy with no legs who is doing a bicycle race against somebody else with no legs around a track. And they're thinking the thoughts that make their muscles move. And because they have electrodes to their brain and to their legs. And it's fascinating. Actually, the most interesting thing about that is when they do this bicycle race, they have to make sure they don't overthink their legs because they can wear out their muscles without even knowing they're wearing out their muscles because they can't feel it.
Oh, yeah.
So there's all these different types of technological things that are built into this software to make sure that they don't, because otherwise they'd be like, well, go 5,000 miles per hour, except their legs wouldn't be able to respond.
Oh, okay.
But it gets, that's really where this kind of cyborg Olympics becomes really fascinating. But that's just where we are here in 2016 and 2020. Where we're really going is when you can take a football with a bionic arm and probably be here in maybe 5 to 10 years and throw it, half a mile with total precision. That also is going to be here. So when we look out 10, 15 years, what is the sporting environment going to be like? Well, it could get very, very radical. There's this, people that are building bionic boots that can allow them to run already like 25, basically as fast as you say, Bolt, the champion runner.
But Bolt, yeah.
They think they're going to be able to get them to run so fast that they might even be able to run on water using exoskeleton technology. So you would run out to the ocean a half mile and you would do your jog out there.
So because in your article you said in order to do that, look at these dudes, everybody going, wow. So you would need to, you said, go run at 67 miles an hour.
So an Italian bunch of scientists did a report and they said, in order for a human being to run on water, they have to be able to keep up 67 miles per hour. But exoskeleton technology will probably at some point in the next 10 or 20 years allow us to do that. It'll be like, and if you get these kind of paddles on the back of your legs, you'll just be like, okay, now I'm running on water. So, I mean, that's the future of sports, that marathons may take place across the ocean.
So one of the things I want to ask you about is this concept of the singularity. Explain what that is.
So the singularity is this kind of quasi-science idea, but basically it says that at some point technology becomes so sophisticated, like artificial intelligence, that our own human brain can no longer even understand how it works. And AI, or artificial intelligence, then starts growing upon itself, and very quickly, the microprocessor can kind of exponentially grow. Even if it's not following Moore's law, it's still every 18 to 24 months doubling capacity. The singularity is where all the technological innovation that happens in a minute is more technological innovation than all of history combined.
Yeah.
Because it's so fast, and the microprocessor goes from a gazillion bits to a trillion gazillion bits in literally seconds. And that's what transhumanists see as sort of the final destination of our species. Is, we don't look at an afterlife where we kind of sit there with harps and feeding ourselves or whatever. We look at this kind of technological singularity where that's where we maybe end up. We end up embedded in artificial intelligence, our intelligence spanning the cosmos, maybe actually becoming one with subatomic particles, or everything's just conscious of itself. It's almost a Gaia kind of thing, except it's very scientifically based.
And most scientists feel that this would happen when, in your opinion?
So a lot of people say it's going to happen by 2050. Frankly, it could happen earlier, and it could also happen in 100 years from now. I think it's guaranteed to happen, but
I mean, most of them agree that it will happen. It's just a matter of when. Because what it really is when machines become sentient, like when they pretty much kind of become human. They can understand. They can talk.
And there's just a chance that they become so sophisticated very quickly, and they say, let's make ourselves very sophisticated more. And then all of a sudden they go from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32, and in a matter of hours. And they're, just like the sci-fi movies, this is not necessarily only science fiction. This is really how computer technology can operate. Once it figures out how to do something, its speed just is astounding from a human brain perspective. I mean, you have to understand, our human brains are 3 pounds of meat. But an AI that learns how to use the internet, that spans across every single server in every single major city and uses all that computational power, is going to have, I'm not sure exactly how many times, but billions and billions of times more capacity than we would essentially have.
Yeah.
So, that's why it's very important that we don't let AI run off, because it leaves us behind so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you that are confused, because there's 3 divisions of artificial intelligence. So you have the narrow AI, which is what Siri is on your phone. That Siri could do very specific things, or a driverless car could just drive. But then you get to general artificial intelligence, where a machine now is able to do a lot of these different things. And then super intelligence, as that machine begins to build on itself and begin to understand a lot more, and then leaves us behind. Kind of, I hope I explained that correctly.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, that's just that's interesting. Okay, so you were in real estate in the beginning, right?
Well, the beginning was National Geographic.
Okay.
So I began my career at National Geographic right out of college and did 5 years. So I saw a lot of war zones. That's kind of why I was drawn to transhumanism, as I saw quite a bit of death and horror and all that other stuff. When my father got sick, I went back to Oregon and California and started a business in real estate, which luckily did very well and kind of allowed me then to pursue my other passions. And because I'd been in these war zones, my passion was overcoming death. And so I dedicated myself to the transhumanist movement by writing books and writing articles. And a book of mine called The Transhumanist Wager went off and did very well.
That's right. Check out his book, The Transhumanist Wager.
The Transhumanist Wager. And in fact, I just got a phone call from some big Hollywood company. So eventually, we've had discussion for, eventually the book will be made into a movie.
Oh, really?
So I'm hopeful of that too. And ever since then, I guess I've been writing articles. But what mainly happened, is what a lot of people know me for, is that in late 2014, I realized that transhumanism did not have a political component, and I formed the Transhumanist Party, and then was its nominee for the presidential election in 2016. And lo and behold, despite being a kind of an unknown person, the science candidacy really took off, and we ended up, doing 100 million views, and we ended up, being focused, I guess covered by major media all the time. We had a giant 40-foot coffin bus, which we drove across the country.
He has run for president, okay? So this is the second presidential candidate on the show.
And so we trafficked very good, and they said at some point we're trafficking either 5th or 6th of all the candidates who finished. So there's, Trump, Hillary, Jill Stein, and Gary Johnson, and then either myself was probably next or one other. And in terms of traffic, now it's hard because we were not always getting that many votes because we weren't on all the state ballots. In fact, it was very hard to get any. However, we actually trafficked a lot, meaning for what we were trying to do, we were not trying to win the presidency. We were just trying to say, hey, if you vote for me in office, I will make it sure that you will live as long as you want to live. I will overcome death as your presidency. And that was really our main ticket, is to spread transhumanism in the media and to talk about science in a different way. Nobody had ever spoken about science on the campaign trail up until that point in a real way, and that's what we did. That's the history.
That's interesting. So one of the things is, like, I know a lot of the Silicon Valley guys now are trying everything in their power to avoid death, and because they know that we will get to this point where we'll be able to solve that mystery. So what are you doing to try to prolong your life?
So what's interesting about, I guess, myself is that I'm quite a bit younger than a lot of the other people that you might see in kind of public roles, and age makes a huge difference. One of the reasons I'm so into transhumanism and like robotic limbs and brain implants and things like that is because I'm still quite healthy, but a lot of the 60 and 70-year-old academics are all interested in life extension because they're like, I'm going to die soon, I'm freaking out, And you can see the demographic of age makes all the difference in how you treat transhumanism versus life extension. And so I don't really do that much. I try to jog every day and eat well and drink sometimes. And
so you're not like the Silicon Valley guys. All of them follow the keto diet. And
no, I'm not. I mean, I do eat organic stuff, and I try not to eat too much meat and all these other things. But honestly, like, I'm hopeful that there'll be technological fixes to my issues before I get sick. Whereas I think a lot of the other people are quite a bit older, like Ray Kurzweil, for example. I mean, he's in his 70s, so he really has to worry about having a heart attack or dying or something like that, cancer. And
I just want to tell him, Ray Kurzweil he's a futurist as well. He's from this movement, and he's one of the leaders in the movement. Really, he's one who really talks a lot about the singularity and how artificial intelligence is going to pass us at some point pretty soon. But I heard that he takes, in terms of supplements and pills, like something like $1,000 a day on his medication.
Yeah, I've heard he takes over 100 pills. I never asked him, but I mean,
you met him.
I've seen a couple of his speeches. We've never really met actually directly in person. We have been on email contact before, though.
Okay.
I gave him my book.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Like I said, I'm of that belief that we will. I don't know if I'm a transhumanist. I guess I am, but where we will live, indefinitely. I don't want to say immortal or forever. Anyway, so. Find your book. What else should they go out there and look for?
Well, so my book is The Transhumanist Wager, which you can get on Amazon. I also have a new book of essays called The Future Resists Cure. My website, ZoltanIstvan.com. And you can Google my work, both from National Geographic days before, now from the New York Times, and just also all the fun interviews that I do, as well as we have riding on a coffin bus and all sorts of crazy stuff that we did during the 2016 campaign trail.
Yeah. Hey, listen, thank you guys for watching. Please go follow him and read about this stuff. You don't have to buy in or, believe it, but just look at it and you could see where technology, trust me, okay? I am not a scientific mind, but when I look at some of the stuff out there, it is crazy. Stay tipsy, friends. Stay tipsy.